This material argues that delayed success is not a punishment, but rather a deliberate incubation period necessary to build the energetic capacity required to handle our biggest break.
Right.
And I have to say, looking at the feedback today, the material has incredibly strong emotional resonance.
It really does.
Like those evocative metaphors it uses, especially the tension of a drawn bowstring, are just fantastic. But, there are a few high-level structural and stylistic opportunities here to really maximize its overall impact.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, diving right into the thematic setup, the text establishes this premise of delayed gratification by referencing the unseen universe. It talks about opportunities lining up like planes on a runway.
I remember that section well.
And to me, reading through that part felt remarkably like sitting in an airport waiting room where someone just assures you your flight will be called eventually.
Right.
Which is comforting. I mean, it lowers your heart rate, but it leaves the listener completely out of control.
Exactly. The script leans heavily on well-worn motivational tropes, which dilutes the impact of its core original message about capacity building.
Yeah, it kind of shifts the focus away from the actual work.
It does. The weakness here is that relying on familiar clichés like being 3 feet from gold and focusing so heavily on the abstract cosmic inevitability of success.
Like the part where it says conversations are happening in rooms you're not in?
Yes, exactly that line. It makes the narrative feel slightly passive. It borders on promising an inevitable win without defining the active preparation required by the listener, which ultimately leaves the argument ungrounded.
So, how do we bring that back down to earth?
Well, the suggestion is to pivot the angle slightly away from cosmic inevitability and double down on the script's most compelling original concept.
Which is the idea of stewarding the win, right?
Precisely. Shift the focus from passively waiting for the universe to deliver to actively building the internal infrastructure required to hold the success without crumbling.
But wait, let me play devil's advocate for a sec. If we pivot to active preparation, don't we risk throwing the reader right back into the exhausting hustle culture mindset the author is explicitly trying to avoid?
That's a fair point.
I mean, the cosmic inevitability is meant to be a psychological salve.
It is a salve, but it's treating the wrong wound for this specific demographic. We are talking to high achievers here, builders.
Ah, right.
And when you tell a builder that the universe is doing all the heavy lifting, you don't lower their anxiety, you actually spike it, because they derive their peace from agency.
A builder in a waiting room isn't relaxed, they're pacing the floor.
Exactly. They want to know what to do with their hands while they wait. So for concrete examples of how to fix this, instead of simply repeating that the win is descending, the author needs to expand significantly on that month 83 anecdote.
Oh yeah, where the friend finally became someone who could steward the business.
Right. Rather than just stating that, describe what that actually looked like. Did the friend change how they handled rejection in month 82?
Or did they build better systems, maybe?
Yes. Show the listener how to actively steward the waiting period rather than just relying on faith. Give them the actual mechanics of active preparation.
That makes a ton of sense. And, building directly on that idea of how to act during this waiting period, the material smoothly moves into the paradox of relaxed intensity and committed surrender.
Right. It's a really interesting pivot in the text.
It is, but I have to push back a little bit on how it's presented. Telling someone to just keep showing up without desperation is kind of like telling a tightrope walker to just act natural.
That is a great analogy.
I mean, it's an instruction on how to feel, but it doesn't tell them how to behave. If you tell a tightrope walker to act natural, they become hyper-aware of their feet and they fall.
Completely. The concept of relaxed intensity introduces a fascinating psychological paradox, but the current phrasing leaves the audience without a clear operational anchor.
Right, it's just floating out there.
The weakness is that the text instructs the listener to maintain committed surrender and to keep their frequency clear, but it lacks behavioral translation.
It's purely conceptual at this stage.
Because it remains purely conceptual, a listener deeply entrenched in the struggle will struggle to apply it. They're left intellectually understanding the concept, but practically confused about what to do with their hands.
They're suspended in cognitive dissonance. The brain is screaming that a threat is imminent because a deal just fell through at 2 a.m.
Exactly. You can't just think your way out of a physiological response.
Right, so what is the actionable fix here?
The suggestion is to translate these abstract emotional states into contrasting, highly specific behavioral examples that grounds the author's intent in everyday reality.
Oh, I like that. What does that look like in practice?
As a concrete example, paint a picture of the two extremes. Contrast a desperate action, like refreshing an inbox at 2 a.m., forcing a follow-up email, or obsessing over a 5-year projection.
Yeah, the white-knuckling approach.
Right. Contrast that with a relaxed intensity action, such as sending the pitch and then immediately going for a walk, or starting a completely new creative project while the previous one sits in the universe's hands.
Oh wow, yeah, that shows the physical difference between gripping the steering wheel and lightly resting your hands upon it.
Exactly. The feeling of committed surrender doesn't cause the action. The action causes the feeling.
You're giving them the physical choreography of the paradox and connecting that behavior before the breakthrough to the material's final phase, what happens after the breakthrough. The text brings up this brilliant observation about the quiet Tuesday afternoon.
It really is brilliant.
It's profound, right? It acknowledges how the nervous system needs time to catch up after the win, but honestly, getting to this insight feels super delayed by the text's own structure.
It does. The pacing of the final third loses critical momentum by repeatedly promising the win's imminent arrival rather than deeply exploring the complex aftermath of success.
It just loops over and over.
Yeah, the weakness is that after reaching the natural climax of the plane's landing metaphor, the text cycles through multiple, slightly redundant reiterations telling the listener not to quit.
Like, closing the distance, and the door isn't gonna knock forever.
Right, or saying it's already here. This repetition drags the pacing and buries the most emotionally mature and unexpected point in the piece, which is the need to physically integrate the win and let the nervous system settle.
But, let me jump in here. From a structural standpoint, doesn't a long-form essay need a crescendo?
Usually, yes.
Doesn't the reader need that hype at the very end to prevent them from closing the page feeling deflated?
If this were a standard rah-rah motivational speech, yes, you'd end on a loud crescendo. But remember our audience. These are high achievers who have been running a marathon for years.
Oh, right. They're exhausted.
Exactly. They don't need to be incessantly hyped up. They need a roadmap for the completely unfamiliar territory of actually winning. So the suggestion here is to compress the repetitive assurances of the climax, to dedicate more structural real estate to the psychological integration phase, honoring the listener's advanced understanding of the topic.
Just slow it all down.
Yeah. For concrete examples, cut the redundant lines about ready or not, it's almost here, and the door isn't going to knock forever.
And use that space for what?
Instead, take the space saved and expand on the quiet Tuesday afternoon. Detail the physical sensation of resisting the urge to immediately chase the next goal.
Describe what letting it land actually looks like in practice.
Right. Perhaps it's intentionally taking a week off to do nothing, or consciously rewriting the internal narrative of inadequacy. Give this post-win integration the breathing room it deserves.
Wow, that completely transforms the material from just a simple pep talk into a crucial survival guide for the aftermath of achievement.
It really elevates it. By leaning into these adjustments, the material goes from standard motivational fare to a profound, actionable guide.
Okay, well, let's briefly synthesize the takeaways for the listener today.
Sounds good.
First, ground those abstract promises by detailing how to actively steward a goal.
Right. Expand that month 83 anecdote so we see what month 82 looked like.
Exactly. Second, translate relaxed intensity into concrete behavioral contrast. Show us what to do with our hands, like sending the pitch and going for a walk.
Give us the physical choreography.
Yep. And finally, tighten the final act's pacing to give the post-win integration phase more room to breathe. Cut the repetitive hype.
Let the nervous system settle.
Spot on. Well, we warmly invite you to implement these structural and stylistic suggestions and submit the revised material back for another round of feedback. We'd absolutely love to see how this evolves.